The acceptance email arrived at exactly 8:17 on a Tuesday morning. I had refreshed my inbox at least 50 times before school. When the notification finally appeared, my heart nearly stopped. I clicked it with trembling hands. Congratulations. That single word blurred through my tears. I had done it. After 4 years of studying before sunrise, volunteering on weekends, leading the debate team, and working 20 hours a week at a grocery store, I had been accepted into one of the most prestigious Ivy League universities in the country. For the first time in my life, I believed everything was about to change. My name is Emily Parker. I was 18 years old, the youngest of 2 sisters. Growing up, my older sister Jessica had always been the center of attention. If she won a school award, the entire family celebrated. If I won one, Mom smiled and said, "That's nice, honey." Jessica wasn't a bad student. She simply never worked very hard. She joked that I was the smart one, while she was the fun one. I never minded. I thought families didn't need to keep score. When I ran downstairs holding my acceptance letter, I expected my parents to hug me. Instead, Mom barely looked up from the kitchen. "What is it?" I got in. She smiled politely. "That's wonderful." Dad nodded without lifting his eyes from his laptop. "We'll celebrate this weekend." It wasn't the reaction I'd imagined, but I told myself they were just busy. 3 days later, everything changed. I heard a loud crash from the kitchen. Jessica lay on the floor, clutching her stomach. She was crying uncontrollably. "It hurts. It hurts so much." Dad immediately called an ambulance. The next several days became a blur of hospital visits, worried phone calls, and endless waiting. Finally, the doctors gave us an answer. Jessica had cancer. At least, that's what everyone believed. My parents' entire world shifted overnight. Every conversation revolved around treatments, appointments, insurance, medication. The acceptance letter hanging on our refrigerator slowly disappeared beneath hospital schedules. I understood. Family comes first. I never complained. A month later, the university emailed asking me to confirm enrollment. I carried my laptop into the living room. "Dad, the deadline is Friday." He looked exhausted. "So soon." Mom quietly sat beside him. "We've been looking at the bills." She handed me several hospital statements. The numbers made my stomach tighten. Insurance wasn't covering everything. Dad rubbed his forehead. "We've used most of the college savings. I'll apply for more scholarships." I said quickly, "I can work." Mom reached over and held my hand. "The university offers deferred admission. 1 year. You'd still keep your acceptance." Jessica sat silently on the couch wrapped in a blanket. She looked at me with watery eyes. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted this." How could I blame her? I couldn't. I signed the deferral paperwork. Watching my classmates pack for college that summer hurt more than I expected. Social media filled with dorm room photographs. Campus tours. Orientation week. Meanwhile, I stocked grocery shelves from 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Then worked evenings at a coffee shop. Every paycheck helped pay another hospital bill. Whenever I felt discouraged, I reminded myself, next year. Everything would happen next year. Jessica's treatments seemed unusual. Some days, she claimed she was too weak to leave her room. Other days, she spent hours at the shopping mall with friends. When I mentioned it once, Mom became defensive. People with cancer still have good days. I apologized. Maybe I was being unfair. Months passed. Jessica never seemed to lose much weight. Her hair remained surprisingly healthy. Whenever relatives visited, she suddenly looked pale and exhausted. After they left, she laughed while watching television. I noticed, then felt guilty for noticing. One rainy Saturday, Mom asked me to organize Jessica's insurance paperwork because she was overwhelmed. "It's all in the desk drawer." Jessica had gone away for the weekend with a support group. I entered her room carefully. The first drawer contained ordinary paperwork. The second held receipts. The third changed everything. Inside was a thick folder labeled medical. Relieved, I opened it. Instead of hospital reports, I found blank medical forms. Prescription labels that had never been attached to medicine. Several cosmetic receipts. One invoice immediately caught my attention. Professional special effects makeup. Service provided. Temporary illness simulation package. I frowned. That couldn't be right. Then I found another receipt. Custom silicone scalp piece. Purpose. Realistic hair loss appearance. My hands began trembling. There had to be some explanation. There had to. At the bottom of the folder sat a sealed envelope. Inside was a contract from a private acting coach. The listed objective read: develop convincing physical behaviors associated with chronic illness. I could barely breathe. Then one folded piece of notebook paper slipped onto the floor. It was unmistakably Jessica's handwriting. Across the top, she had written, "Things that always work on Mom and Dad." Below it was a checklist. Cry before speaking. Never eat much when relatives visit. Mention pain after Emily gets good news. The final line was circled several times. Sick beats smart in this house. At that exact moment, I heard the front door open. Jessica had come home early. She walked into her bedroom, saw the papers in my hands. Instead of looking frightened, she smiled. Then she shrugged and calmly said, "I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out." Jessica leaned against the bedroom door without the slightest hint of panic. She looked at the papers in my hands, then at my face. Finally, she shrugged. "So, you know," I couldn't believe how calm she was. My voice trembled. "You lied." She rolled her eyes. "I adapted. You stole an entire year of my life." She laughed quietly. "Oh, Emily, you would have been everyone's favorite forever if you'd gone to that fancy school." I couldn't let that happen. I stared at her in disbelief. "So you pretended to have cancer?" She folded her arms. "I pretended to have something. People only asked questions when you were succeeding. When I got sick, they stopped looking at you." She pointed toward the handwritten checklist. I wasn't wrong. Sick beats smart in this house. The words hit harder hearing her say them aloud. I quietly picked up every document and walked downstairs. Mom and Dad were sitting at the kitchen table reviewing another stack of medical bills. "Dad, we need to talk." Jessica followed me, still completely confident. Mom smiled. "What's going on?" Without saying a word, I placed the receipts, contracts, and handwritten notes on the table. Dad frowned. "What is this?" "You should ask Jessica." Mom picked up the makeup invoice. Her smile slowly disappeared. "This has to be a mistake." "It isn't." Dad looked at Jessica. "Tell us." Jessica remained silent. Then she sighed dramatically. "Fine. I exaggerated." "You exaggerated?" Dad's voice shook. She shrugged again. "The doctors never actually confirmed cancer. I just didn't correct anyone." The room fell completely silent. Mom looked horrified. "We emptied our retirement savings." Dad whispered, "I postponed retirement. You let us believe you were dying." Jessica finally looked uncomfortable. "I didn't think it'd go this far." "You watched it go this far." I quietly opened another folder. "There's more." Inside were emails from the university. My deferred admission had expired. Because I hadn't enrolled after 1 year, my place had been offered to another student. My scholarship was gone. Everything I had worked for, gone. Mom slowly realized what that meant. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Emily, I'm so sorry." I nodded. "I know. But sorry doesn't give me back that year." Dad stood up. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine disappointment in his eyes as he looked at Jessica. "You didn't just lie. You stole your sister's future." Jessica whispered. "I didn't mean." Dad interrupted. "No, you meant exactly what you wrote." He held up the page that read, "Sick beats smart in this house." Jessica finally broke down crying. "I was always second. Emily got the grades, the awards. The teachers loved her. I just wanted someone to notice me." Mom quietly answered, "We always noticed you. We simply trusted you." The following weeks were difficult. Relatives learned the truth. Friends who had organized fundraisers demanded refunds. The local charity that had paid several medical expenses requested repayment. Jessica accepted responsibility. She sold her car, found a full-time job, began paying back every dollar she could. Meanwhile, I believed my dream was over. Then one afternoon my guidance counselor called. "I heard what happened. I've spoken with someone." She encouraged me to tell the complete story to the university. I didn't expect anything, but I wrote an honest letter. I included copies of every document, the receipts, the acting contract, Jessica's handwritten confession. Several weeks later, my phone rang. The admissions director spoke personally. "Emily, in 20 years I've never read circumstances like yours. We cannot restore the lost year, but we can offer something else." The university reinstated my admission. They also restored my scholarship. Because of my resilience and academic record, they even awarded additional financial aid. When the acceptance packet arrived for the second time, Mom cried harder than I did. Dad quietly placed it on the kitchen table. "This time, we celebrate first." The day I left for college, Jessica stood beside my car. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was the first repayment check from her new job. It wasn't much, but it represented accountability. She looked at me. I don't expect forgiveness. I know. I just wanted you to know. I'm finally trying to become someone who doesn't need other people's pain to feel important. Years later, after graduating with honors, I returned home to speak at my old high school. A student asked, "What made you keep going after losing everything?" I smiled. I realized something. No lie lasts forever, but truth needs someone willing to carry it. After the presentation, I found Mom and Dad waiting outside. Dad hugged me tightly. "I wish we'd looked more carefully." I smiled. "You believed your daughter. That wasn't your greatest mistake." "What was?" "You stopped seeing your other daughter." He lowered his head. "I'll regret that forever." I squeezed his hand. "Then don't waste another day." Families aren't defined by never making painful mistakes. They're defined by what they choose to do after the truth comes to light. Jessica spent years rebuilding trust. My parents learned that love should never mean ignoring facts. And I learned that while deception can steal time, opportunities, and even dreams for a season, it can never permanently defeat perseverance. Because in the end, my future wasn't determined by my sister's lie. It was determined by my decision to keep moving forward long after the lie had been exposed.